You were created to create.
And now that you're here, the only way to unlock and unfold that is you find ways to continue to create.
When you stop learning, you stop growing. Your biggest purpose is how are you going to crack the code on you?
As we continue week 4, I want you to think about, and you can close your eyes really quickly, just to help you imagine, okay? But what does it feel like, okay, in your body? Maybe there's an actual place, maybe there's an actual feeling, a tingle, something. But whenever you, in any scenario, maybe feel anxious, or maybe you start to feel frustration, or maybe you feel angry, like what is it that you feel? I know those things can vary, but is there specific spots, places in your body that you can actually feel that? And so what is that, right? What is that is my question. When you feel that, or what do you start to, like, your thoughts release, chemicals within your body that give you this reaction and feeling? So what is it that you feel? If you can kind of think back, like when somebody frustrates you, what does that feel like? Or what comes to mind? Or maybe you feel angry. If somebody maybe pissed you off, right? What does that feel like? And so much of that is, what is that? Where does that come from? What are we dealing with? And that's what today's topic is, all right? And we are at step 4, of course, which is E, which is energy. Now, within the full scope of the curriculum, the kind of the framework of the A16 Basics, that E can also represent, emotions, if I go into a younger demographic. But energy, we're going to, as quick as I can in this week's Tune In Tuesday, I want to take you through this topic of what energy is, and also the partnership of emotions, okay? So that word emotions, okay, what we all have a relationship, and something that is a big part of our life is literally what we're going to be talking about, okay? Energy, emotion. So as best as I can, I want to give you the biggest points of chapter 4, step 4, energy in the A16 Basics, okay? I can't give you the full spectrum of everything we cover, but I'll do my best to give you the most important. So in this understanding of emotion, okay, I want you to, this is crazy to me. This literally comes back from the Latin word meaning energy in motion, okay? So understand that when we think of emotions, what we need to truly understand, because, that's actually the meaning of it, it originates from the Latin meaning, bringing it back to energy in motion. Emotions is energy in motion. And so many people don't realize that. This was years ago before I actually realized. I was like, wow, that's interesting. Emotions, energy in motion. And so that's literally what it is. These are signals. These are gauges. These are indicators. These are how we navigate brilliantly, or should be able to, or can, or not, depending on our relationship and our perspective and our management with these things called emotions, right? With the energy in motion that is playing out. So they're not weaknesses. I think a lot of times people think when you cry in front of somebody, or maybe you can laugh hysterically in front of somebody, and not, like, people think that's kind of a weakness, like you can't control that emotion. And I get that, but they're not. They're truly not. They are your energy speaking. It's literally, instead of seeing it as a problem, we need to actually paint them in the actual value of what they bring, which is direction and indicators, right? They're giving us feedback, critical feedback, so much through our day. And so everything is energy. That's all there is to it. And I didn't say that. That's Albert Einstein, okay? Everything is energy. That's all. It just said, like, point blank, okay? And so that includes you and I. We are energy, and I want to expand into that, okay? So if you're watching and you're tracking, just would you drop that word in all caps with whatever emojis you would like? Drop that word energy for this week's topic and A16 Basics. So what's the big idea, okay? So as we've kind of went through the last couple of weeks, again, I gave you a recap of what those were. But as we've let go, we've released, as we begin to notice and grow in our awareness, as we begin to partner with the force and really the attributes, everything that love opens and invites, Now, what is it that fuels and makes these things real? What is it that we can start to, gravitate towards or utilize? Like, what becomes the currency that makes these things kind of jive and mesh together? And so this all really comes back to energy, okay? It starts to now become a practice and an invitation into how you're going to redirect and shift your energy. Some of it, I'll say it like this. It feels like you are what people say, fake it to make it. So mentally, I'm saying, not in the physical world as acts, I'm saying mentally, some of this is going to feel like fake it till you make it. And what I mean by that is, where you're at and where you are wanting to go and wanting to be, there is a gap. Okay. But the energy that you can convince yourself, or sometimes what may seem like, for lack of better words, pretending yourself into a new way of feeling, a new way of showing up with a different type of energy, and actually convincing yourself, because your brain, again, doesn't know what is physically happening in an experience. So when you can start to tap into and shift your energy and your awareness into where you're going, what you're growing, why it's important, and how it's going to make you feel, right? Your mind starts to be convinced that you're already living that future you. So this is critical. And so much of your energy, your awareness, like we talked about, 2 weeks ago with Look, becomes you allowing yourself to, let go, release. We've done that. Now we are continuing to see that, love is a force. We also see where we need to upgrade and progress. But then now this is where we start to merge our energy, our decisions, our attitudes, our mental attitudes with conducting a new way of showing up, a new way of experiencing, a new vibration, a new frequency. There's a lot of language behind it. Okay, so that's the big idea with energy. Energy is everything. And you're so much bigger than just this body, like I like to call it a meat suit. I don't know, that's one of my favorite names for it. I heard that from somebody else. But you're bigger than this big body meat suit, this human body flesh. We got skin, we got hair, we got tattoos, we like this physical thing. We're so much bigger. We're actually bigger within us than we are than what people would see and perceive from the outside of us. And so there's a lot of science, and I'm going to hop into that. I'll say this too to add to that point. Tesla, he gives a quote, and he says, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, vibration." And so, like, when we talk about frequency and energy, I don't know everything there is to know about that. I probably only not even know a fraction, but I understand enough and have been convinced enough and have experienced enough to know that we are so much bigger through the energy that we carry, and you can't make up that energy. And in fact, the average has tried to, convince or manipulate people to seeing the image, the outside of who they are, and then people can automatically, that gut feeling people talk about. You can start to feel this negative energy, like there's something not right. There's something not congruent about what you're telling me. You're portraying, you seem like this type of person, but I feel like, or something, I sense this, it's this frequency. If you could put name or words to it, if you could, we'll get to name it and tame it here in a little bit, but if you could name it, like, it doesn't make sense. It's not in alignment. And so this is where that energy, your energy doesn't lie. Right? Even if you try to go beyond the conscious level and try to lie about it. So, one of the biggest things is realizing how much, our emotions and our energy affects people. In fact, psychologists call it emotional contagion. And I'll say, hey, that reminds me of, shout out to Contagion Athletics. If you're watching this and you know them, tag them or something, because they're definitely not an average gym. But emotional contagion is something that, psychologists have realized is literally like people absorb other people's emotional state unconsciously. They don't even realize. And I've witnessed this. I've been, and to add to that, another way, maybe this makes more sense for you, but like, if you've ever talked to somebody, in an airport or just somewhere somebody that has an accent. So I say an airport or somewhere out of town. But for me, naturally, the more I talk to somebody with an accent, the more I start to like almost like absorb it and adopt it without even thinking about it. Like if I hear them say like, yeah, and then eventually I'll start saying that without even realizing. So that's very similar to the emotional contagion. Okay. Without you often having to, people don't even choose. That's the crazy part about emotional contagion is people don't choose what the vibration is going to be, but people start to absorb what the vibration is. This is why showing up different is a big, thing that is needed in so many rooms and places and spaces. Like the vibration, so, okay, check this out. One of the things that I've learned is, in the terms of vibration, the lowest vibration always has to rise to the highest vibration that it's around, that's in existence, that's in the room, like you name it, even within music. So that's the same with our frequency, our vibration. So if you come into a room and your vibration and your energy and your frequency is at a higher level, right? Your vibe is high. And the energy, the vibration around you, the people, the mentality, the mindset, whatever it is, their vibration is lower. The energy's low, right? By default, what naturally has to happen is they will naturally start to rise to, maybe not consciously, maybe not wanting to, maybe doing it annoyed, but you'll find that over time, they will most definitely, without even knowing it, have to rise to the higher vibration. And so, I love how, people want to be somebody, maybe at times. I mean, I'm a Leo. That reminds me, my wife always talks about how, my sign is a Leo, yada, yada. That's funny. That's cool. I get it. But Leos like attention. They like to be loud. And that fits me. I get it. But, there's been individuals, Leos or not, but I've especially met Leos because they are talkers and, people that, my wife says likes the center of attention. I don't agree with that, but it's fine. We'll argue about it later. People want sometimes naturally that light. They want people's attention, or they want to be in the mix. They want to have the story, right? But when it comes from an energy of like, look at me, see me, or almost like competing with others, people can feel that. So if you're one of those people, shut up. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, you probably should. But this is a way of understanding for all of us that you can't, that's why I don't like to say fake it till you make it. I say own it till you become it, because you can't really fake it. I mean, you can for so long. It'll get you so far. I'm not going to take away from that, but there's not a real way, because even your energy will tell the truth. People can feel it. They can experience it. You can feel it. You can experience it, right? And you can't always mentally muscle your way out of scenarios or not actually having the energy to do something, right? We're human, which is incredible, but there are limits, and there is ways to be wiser about how you are partnering with the things that God gave you in a way that benefits you rather than keep you stuck, right? The average is, and most of them may be unconsciously unaware, but they're stuck and they're not partnering. Like their energy and what they put into their body, like there's a lot of levels to energy. It has no awareness on it. They don't pay attention to how their energy affects others, how they can better their energy, how to invest in energy, how to upgrade. So putting your energy, protecting your energy and the investments with your energy and what that looks like. It reminds me of Proverbs 4:23, and it says, above all else, which is a big thing. I mean, that means above everything. Like, here it is. Guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Okay, everything. So your decisions, your relationships, your your futuristic plans, like you have to realize that even your capability to love, like it all flows from the state of your energy, which is the source of, that comes from your heart. The heart that you carry, how you want to show, like bringing energy, having energy. It's not something you think, it's something you feel. And so, Proverbs 4:23 reminds us, like, you need to guard your heart because everything flows from it. And that most importantly includes your energy, like your life source and so, okay, let me continue, because speaking of energy, I want to ask you a question, which to really, bring this home and talking about energy coming from the heart and having that. And so I'm going to give you this word, enthusiasm. And I want to ask you, with that word, when did you lose your enthusiasm? Think about it. And if you don't know what enthusiasm is, I'll let you know shortly. But for those of you who do know, or maybe I'll go ahead so you can all process together. When did you lose your excitement, like your joy, for no reason, excitement and joy in life? When did you lose that? Another way I could ask that, like, when did you start being so boring? When did that happen? Now I'm being funny, but I want you to think about it, just to give you, if I could give you a point again, I can't give you the full framework of energy in the A16 Basics, step 4, but an example that I wanted to just, place within your mind is, having kids of my own and then being a kid at one time. Most days I'm still not, but, there are days I can be a big kid. I love that. But there's something that it was a God-given thing. It was like a part of our birth, right? And when you watch kids play, when I watch my girls play, when I watch other kids play at the playground or just, with my girls and since growing up, right, there's no hesitation. There's, no like question about it, but for just whatever imagination and the opportunity to be alive and to be there and just to have something going and like the excitement, the joy, the enthusiasm of playing this game or being on a playground or being outside and instead of like having to go to bed in that moment, you're getting to play and you're getting to be on a pirate ship or in a castle, whatever the kid's doing, right? And so you watch this, just like this enthusiasm to just be excited, so there's been times I've given my daughters just a box, an empty box that we had something shipped in, and the enthusiasm that goes off because they just gained a car or, you name it. And that was you once at some point for a while. And so my question is, when did you lose that? When did you let go of that? When did that attachment of having something exciting happening around you, that life is exciting? And so enthusiasm, it's crazy because it comes from this Greek word, ethos. Q, how would you say entheos? Entheos? Okay, entheos. I wanted to make sure I said that right. So entheos, this is from the Greek, right? And the en meaning within, okay? And then that theos, the remaining part meaning God. So this enthusiasm translates from its Greek meaning now, literally to filled with spirit. Filled with spirit. Filled from within, right? It's never, this wasn't like, so enthusiasm wasn't a personality trait. It wasn't something that some got, some didn't. You can't show me a kid that had to be taught enthusiasm and excitement for life. And at some point, right now, we're not talking about kids that have been abused. We're not talking about kids that no, I'm talking about a natural kid in its original state, right? And that was true for you and I, and that is true for you and I. So where did we go? Where did it go, right? What happened is we really just kind of take a look back and process it all. Well, we call it, we sum it up to life. We call it like life happened, disappointments, the environment, the loss, the things around us, and And so all of those things, your own trauma, your own story, your own pain, I'm not like downplaying or talking down on any of that, because we've all had it and we've all been there and we all have a story. But what we do through that story and how we get to the other side of that story and how we start to protect that thing called energy and how we actually start to partner and win it back is a separating force. Like that's a big difference between people that are basically like zombified within their energy and their choices, like walking through life, and people that find some kind of excitement, and joy, and fulfillment and way of serving. Like it's just, there's a dramatic difference there. And this, a lot of times we can see it from the energy standpoint, the emotions of people, the emotions. So like, that's why I keep coming back to that. So enthusiasm, here's what I want to say. Like, it's not something that we wait for among a lot of things. It's not something that like when you hit the lotto, which is such an average way of thinking, like it's the lottery effect. Like when this happens, I'll be excited. Then I'll have something to be excited about. And you might be excited for a little bit, right? But what happens when all that passes and, it's back to what it was? Like it has to go way deeper. It's not something you just wait for. It's something you have to find ways to reconnect to. We have to reconnect to this thing called, because enthusiasm is bigger than just excitement. It taps into passion. It taps into joy. It taps into to happiness. Like it's a lot deeper than that. And so a lot of this is just us doing what we've been doing since step one, right? Letting go of things that don't serve us. Letting go of things that are stripping maybe our enthusiasm, our joy, our excitement about life. Like we've done that in step one, and then all of a sudden we start building more and more awareness, right? We go back into that. Step two, step three, okay, how do we love ourselves now? How do we show up better, not trying to mentally muscle our way through, not trying to, drill sergeant our way through and hate ourselves, but how do we start to love ourselves through? And then this is now getting back to all of these decisions, and all these things are going to help upgrade our energy, right? So another E component that I want to leave with you is emotional intelligence, another big factor when we talk about energy. Okay, so I want to transition into that. And, back in the beginning when we first started, I was looking at, what emotions are, energy and motion. We talked about that, but they're not, again, I want to go back to the fact that they are not your enemy. They are your signals in so many different things that we are taking on and you have to be aware of, right? And so like, I thought this was really cool. There's a researcher, and there's been research that has backed this, but Ekman, he did research across cultures of 6 continents and confirmed that there are 7 universal human emotions, okay? Same expressions, same triggers, every society on the earth, and no culture lacks them. So they are the universal language of human beings, right? I mean, or just we could say being human. Like every culture, every society across the board tracks with emotions, knows what they are, gets triggered by the same emotions, understands the same emotions. Like you can go into a completely different part of the earth, and if you were to just go off on this crazy tantrum, like throwing a fit, pissed off, throwing rocks, I don't know what you're doing, but people can see they would know you're angry. You don't have to tell them, you don't have to explain it, you don't have to put it in their language on a billboard. We know, like, emotions are a big deal. And so in that, emotional intelligence is really one of those things that becomes, when we talked about in week 2, that awareness, and really in leadership and personal development, personal growth, and success, I mean, higher than even your IQ level, your EQ becomes a bigger deal, more important, right? And so how do you grow in your emotional intelligence? And so much of that is just becoming more and more aware, allowing yourself to see and have conversations with yourself and grow in your awareness. And so what does that look like in growing in emotional intelligence when we're talking about emotions? I mean, you start to put some awareness into what is what gives you energy, but what also drains your energy? People, we all know that you could think of somebody right now. If I told you to close your eyes again, you don't have to, but maybe you could. And think of one person that, like, if you work with them, you are related to them, but when you leave their presence, you feel more drained or you feel more anxious. I'm sure you could think of at least one, if not 10, probably. And a lot of times, and this might be a little bit harder, but think of another person, one, that when you leave their presence, their room, their whatever it is that you are experiencing them at, work with them, you can feel a little bit more seen or loved or fulfilled or joyful, like any of that. And so it's a lot easier to identify people that are like, oh, they're always complaining, or they're always the victim, or they're like, the list goes on and on, because that's what the average does. It's easier. There's really no hard decisions to make there. You just go with the flow. Go with what everybody else is doing. Go with how you feel. You don't feel like it, right? Speaking of emotions, energy, a lot of the average, if you don't feel like it, don't do it. I didn't feel like it, right? So the allergic to average move into a way of seeing that, you are the master of your emotions. You are the master of your energy, right? You are the conductor and the commander of these things. That's why we go back to the 8A core 4, right? Love, and then that create so much of this, and how you're experiencing life tangibly and realistically, and the way it feels in your body, the way your body feels, the way your mind, right? The energy we carry, it's a big deal, okay? And so the last thing I want to leave you on, and this is the final thoughts, is realizing that, I'm going to give you these thoughts and just kind of, I want to end quickly, but Daniel Goleman's research shows this. And when I talk about emotional intelligence, his research has showed that emotional intelligence predicts success better than IQ. This is what I was hinting to a while ago. And 90% of top performers across every field score higher in it. Okay, and again, I'm talking about emotional intelligence. And so what were the three things when we looked at 90% of his research has showed that top performers across every field, right, that he had studied, they scored higher in EQ over IQ, right? We always knew about IQ growing up. Nobody ever talked about EQ. But 90%, they scored higher in EQ. So they regardless of their IQ, I'm not saying that's not important. What's even more important, and this is great news for all of us, is the more you can become emotionally intelligent, the more you are going to become closer to a top performer in whatever industry, whatever city, whatever business, whatever job, whatever, like, you name it. This comes back to becoming more and more emotional intelligent, growing in, okay? What should you grow in to grow your emotional intelligence? I'm going to hit you with these three, and then I'm going to leave you there, okay, for this week's A16 basic topic. All right, so those three things. So self-awareness, that was the first thing that David's research had shown. And what is it that helps these individuals build their emotional intelligence, right? So self-awareness, that was week 2. This all goes together. It's all one, I'm telling you. But self-awareness was the number one thing. You have to be self-aware. And a big part of that right now, we're talking about emotions. This is another category of that. And so second thing is a self-regulation. So we've talked about that as well. The pause. Remember that from, what was that? Week 2 as well. Yes, I went blank there. Sorry. Week 2, self-regulation. So the way that you can pause, the way that you can breathe or feel it or process and not just be like, don't even think about it. You're just saying how you feel, like, right? The more we can slow down. So that's self-awareness, to realize I need to slow down at times, or I need to process that, or I need to think before I say something or say how I feel. Then that self-regulation is part of growing in your emotional intelligence. Okay, now I'm aware of it. Now I'm doing it. And then the other big key, which evolves around love, which we talked about last week, right? Which is empathy. The ability to, like, read the room. And dude, I'm not bragging on myself, but I've had to learn how to read the room, and not in a way of being like, oh, I'm the shit. Like, look at me, I'm in the room now. Or look, I want, like, literally seeing the value and the joy, or like maybe sometimes acknowledging the love, even though I can't see it in the room. I know that the people I'm in front of, even though I don't know them, they have love. They carry love. I wouldn't be probably in the same room if they didn't. So that energy and that vibration, I'm already changing and upgrading. I'm already deciding what it's going to feel like, what it's going to be. And a lot of this comes from empathy. Okay, it comes from it. So again, in growing your emotional intelligence, self-awareness, self-regulation, and that ability to choose, right? Not letting your emotions make the decision, but you being the master of those, directing them and deciding, okay, here's how I'm going to proceed. Here's where I'm going to go. Game changer, life changer. I'm telling you, tell your mom. Everybody needs to know this is what is such a critical shifter in what we experience, what we see, but also how to change it, how to be different. So I'm going to end it right there. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And man, I just wanted to encourage you to protect your energy, like guard it, like in Proverbs 23, right? Chapter 4:23. And, it's something that allows you to stay allergic to the average, is how you guard and protect and invest in that energy. So bring the energy, be the energy. I appreciate your energy today, and it's been a pleasure to bring mine. So I love you guys. I'll see you next week for another round of the A16 Basics. We are going into step 5, and that is the R in Allergic. So be ready. I'll see you guys next week. Love you. I'm out.